Hello, everybody, and it is time to go over our award nominees for RPL on F124. Yes, that is right. Our game cycle may be over in terms of points paying races in our seasons. We do have some off-season races we may try still to be determined, but with the lack of attendance, Egg said that there is not too much of a plan on that. So only time will tell. However, we want to go over today the award nominees. Therefore, you guys, if we do a vote or anything like that, we can end up having you guys know what the options are. And maybe not everyone gets a say, but you are aware of who could win it. And maybe if you don't get to vote, you get to at least put your opinion forward on whether or not it is rigged if this person doesn't win it or not. We start off with the most valuable driver. Now, just be aware, folks, some of these are 3 options, some of these are 4 options. Very few of them are 5 options. Most valuable driver throughout RPL on F124. Our options are Leo Lund, George F. Williams, Jack Miles, and Skither. Skither obviously was very good in F2. Came on late, did very well in F1 then. Jack Miles was good everywhere he raced, whether it was F2 or F1. George was tier 3 for the start, was returning to winning ways in F2, and then he won the championship twice in tier 2. And obviously, no need to explain why Leo Lund is on there. We know why. Worst driver. There's quite a few options in this one, and some of these may not be rememberable names, but you can understand where this is coming from. 100 Max, Vibe Haza, Noah Boy 11, and D Summers 90. The only driver not allowed to return to RPL from this list is Noah Boy. He had some antics in Singapore. Speaking of returns, some drivers made a return to glory. Others didn't. But here are the drivers that are on the list for most improved. Jack Miles, George F. Williams, Alex Norris, F1 Shorts, and the Dutchman, JTK. Biggest fall off. There are a few drivers on this list, and we start with Eron Maxwell G, then Mally 41. Although he won the Tier 3 title, the fact he's in Tier 3 was kind of shocking to begin with. Cookie, Ray Stainty, Luke Range, and our other backup option, if anyone feels the need to replace anyone last moment, it would be Beatnik. Beatnik felt like he was deserving to be on there, but I mean, after he won in Tier 2 again, is there really a need for him to be on there? We have our biggest surprise driver next up. Red Fire Tiger. He may have not finished off the game cycle well, but he started it very well. RSF1 Invade. Kipu 57. He almost won a race. Gecko and SV. Now, time for our most overrated. Blue Gagi, Mintoki, F1 Shorts, Polo God, and Netsky. You want to talk about a driver that you may not remember? Well, here's most forgotten. B-Dunk, Such J25, Vapor JS, Chubby Monkey 24, and Lucchini. Now, time for our best debut weekend. B-Dunk. He made only 1 start in RPL. That was in Season 11 F1 Silverstone. He finished on the podium and was in contention for the victory. Netsky made his debut in Season 2 at Tier 3. He just finished off the podium in a Williams. AJ, Alan J722, made his debut in Canada and won the race in Tier 3. Our only driver to win on debut in Tier 3. Night Owl in F2 Canada ended up winning on his debut weekend. Not his debut race, but his debut weekend. He did get pole for that feature race, but that sprint race did not go well. Same said for Josh 433. Not as good of a sprint race, but still a debut weekend where he won on. He won in Spain after Minico and Skither crashed out from the lead in the opening sector. And the only other options we could replace anyone with here would be Willow. Willow made his debut in Spa in the Haas, and Willow was P4 in the Haas. That is still equal to their best finish. So there are the options there. Now, here's a bit of a different one. We're going a little different here. Best Overtaker, Skither, George Up Williams, Josh 433. How about worst Overtaker, though? Because there's some good options here. Blue Goggy 14, The Titan Man 123, Zora War 101. In fact, 2 of those drivers are no longer allowed to race in RPL, so take it with what you will on that one. Now let's go to the best defender. Lyral Fusion, George Up Williams, Mally 41. Now, F124 was a very hard game to defend on because there was constant DRS swapping. So this one was a bit tricky. Lyral Fusion held on to a Tier 3 championship lead when he was not the faster driver and maybe not the better driver in the second half, but he held on. George Up Williams, I mean, probably in terms of on-track action, this is probably the only realistic one we have. Mally 41 held on when he was at a car disadvantage in Tier 3 as well, so I guess that's fair. Now it's time for our best driver on track limits, and there are 3 options. Jack Miles, Ryan Searles, Mally 41. Personally, I would not choose me, but I think it's fair to put me in there because it took me quite a while not to get a track limit penalty. So we talked about our best drivers on track limits. Now it's time to talk about our worst. Red Fire Tiger, RSF1 Invade, and Ding. We already had a best or worst on track limits. Now it's time to give a best and worst on strategy. Best, Skither, Night Owl, TB. Our worst options would be Leo Lund, Reese Dainty, and RSF1 Invade. Now here are some drivers who've not been talked about so far tonight. Andrea, Beatnik, Cryptic. They are on the list for most under the radar. Some drivers just don't get noticed enough. Our unluckiest driver, there's a range of drivers on this list. Minako, Polish Hammer 459, Mintoki, and Timbed. Keep in mind, 3 of the 4 won a race in F124, but none of these drivers have over 3 career wins in RPL. And you probably would say that they probably should have that. They don't. Luckiest driver, Mally 41, George Up Williams, Leo Lund, and Beatnik. It's weird to say Beatnik's under the radar, but he's also on luckiest driver. How about some team players? Our biggest team player, Maddie, Polo God, Eggles, and FX7 Danny. Now it's time for our biggest meme driver. Cam 5675, RPL Tire and Iron, Goatley, and Leon Miner. Those are some 4 good options. Now it is time for the biggest DEI hire. People are probably wondering, well, what does that mean? Well, gotta go to the definition of DEI anyway. Diversity, whatever, I can't think of the word now. Equalness, I guess, I don't know, and inclusiveness. These are the type of drivers who may have got seats or may have got some of their moments in RPL based on stuff that was maybe based on a meme, let's say, or as you'll notice with some of these drivers in the list, or maybe based on funniness, just anything that's out of the ordinary in terms of what we have. Biggest DI hire, the 4 options we have is ERL Robin Brain, RPL Titan Iron, RPL Ardell, and Valkyrie F1. As you can see here, you can understand why these 4 are there. Now, we're going to go to the biggest racecraft change, and this is more so in a positive way. These are drivers who changed their racecraft and improved on it, whether it was from the start of the game cycle to the end, or whether it was from last game cycle to this one. ERT Uri, Florian Fanzelter, the Fake TB, and George Up Williams. I think those are 4 good options, honestly. We cannot talk about a good racecraft change without talking about the worst racecraft from drivers on this list. How about Leon Miner, Jake Bandy, Blue Goggy, and Goatley? On this grid, we always have some mean drivers and some nice drivers, but we're going to talk about our nice drivers next. Who was our nicest driver? Was it NRM KVS? Was it AMS Devon? Was it Timbed? Or was it Torn Penguin? Sometimes we have some very nice drivers, but sometimes we also have drivers who have big egos. Here are the drivers on the list for biggest ego. Blue Gagi, Leo Lund, F1 Shorts, and I hate to say it, but RPL Ardell. Now it is time for the quietest driver, the driver you don't hear too much about, the driver who just stays to themselves, and sometimes a driver who just does their business on track and doesn't have an ego. John, Turbo CubeSack, Blonde, and Wrecked by Storm. Don't really hear Wrecked by Storm talk a lot in the server, but there you go. Now, we cannot talk about the quietest driver without talking about the loudest driver in RPL. Who would that be? Well, we have a few on this list that we could choose from. Josh H16, George Williams, L Mythic, F1 Shorts. Now here's an interesting one. The most forgettable driving ban. This was for a driving related incident. You have Esseril and Metal and Kieran. This happened in Hungary in F1 Season 11. AFJ and Roman, that happened in Imola in Season 12 of F1. AMS Martinez, that happened in Canada, F1 Season 11. And NVR Garrison, I believe that happened at Brazil and maybe after. Now it's time for the most unforgettable driving ban. Drift King Bahrain, when he crashed intentionally. Pascal Rainelli, he caused some chaos in Zandvoort in F1. Egg, this is referring to F2 by the way, his chaos over there. And Siri Dom, when he straight-lined Leo Lund. Which one was the most unforgettable driving ban of the four? Now, it's time to talk about the biggest one-hit wonder in this game cycle. We're talking about a driver who only appeared maybe once or twice, but never really appeared again in this game cycle. We're talking about Lewis Piper here. Lewis Piper, he had that win in Monaco. What did he do besides that? Who the fuck knows? We have Goodmans. He was Choke, start off in RPL. He had a good debut weekend in Alpine in the season finales in Tier 2 and Tier 3, and then only has had 1 points finish since then. What happened to Hyper? Hyper led a race in Baku in Bahrain, but didn't really always get the results. And then Drift King, he had 2 podium finishes. Again, besides that, what did he really do? And it's not to be a Debbie Downer on these drivers, but it's the fact that they had one good moment this game cycle that stood out from the rest that they had. Now it's time for the biggest qualifying merchant. How about F1 Shorts? HSR Gecko. HSR Gecko actually almost delivered Red Bull's 100th pole, but he delivered pole 98 and pole 99 for the team in F1. How about J&T? Didn't win this game, but he got a pole. And Leo Lund. He has a lot more poles compared to race victories. But in terms of races, we got to talk about some race merchants. Who was the biggest race merchant? Was it Jack Miles? Was it George Williams? Was it Mally41? Or was it Night Owl? Now here's the biggest rivalry on track. Was it Josh H versus Ardell? Was it Blue Goggy versus George? Was it Uri versus George? Or was it Miniko versus Josh H? Which one was the biggest rivalry off track? Can't go without talking about now the biggest rivalry on track now. Was it Leo Lund versus Florian? Polish versus Goatley? Them two collided a lot. Leo versus Jack, they were teammates at one point. But you cannot forget about including these two. Cookie and Gecko. I mean, that one just might win it. I mean, that might win it by default. Now, this game, we had 4 academies. We're going to change to 3 academies next game. So there's 4 options for our best academy manager. And just remember, some of these people didn't really own an academy, I guess, throughout the full entire game cycle. The only one that did really was Invade. Netsky. He was part of the McLaren/Alpine Academy. He'll be going to the Mercedes Academy as the academy manager there. RSF1 Invade. He turned around a team that was 5th in Tier 1 to 2nd. Remember, he's Ferrari, Sauber, and Haas. Egg, Red Bull and V-Carb. It will expand to Red Bull Aston V-Carb on next game. And For a short period of time before Netsky, Hunted LAX was the academy manager at McLaren/Alpine Academy. I mean, there's other names we could definitely include on this list, like maybe Titan, Minico, Lennon, Owen, Wavy, but we're bringing it down to 4. And we didn't really talk about Hunted a lot, but he did make a good impact before he lost motivation with this game, so it's fair to include him in this list. Folks, maybe we'll give it up to TPs to vote. Maybe comms will have a say. Who knows? But what we do know is that these are the nominees for the F124 game cycle in RPL awards. Who do you think should win some of these awards? If you have any thoughts, leave it down below in the comment section. Maybe we'll give us our opinion as well. Always like to hear from you guys, but nonetheless, Ryan Cyril is your pundit signing off. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll circle back to this in a few weeks to see who ends up getting some of these awards. Until next time, goodbye, folks.